The team, moving like shadows in the night, stepped out into the vast, desolate landscape. The world had changed. What once were peaceful cities and thriving civilizations were now nothing more than ghost towns ravaged by the alien bombardment. Fires burned in the distance, and the once blue skies were now stained with the ashes of the fallen. As they advanced, the cloaking device kept them hidden, but they knew it wouldn't last. The aliens were already scanning for any anomalies in their sensors, and it was only a matter of time before they detected Earth's forces. The pressure was mounting with each step, the weight of humanity's survival pressing on their shoulders. Finally, they'd reached the edge of the alien-controlled territory. The enemy's forces were positioned in a large, heavily guarded compound, surrounded by a labyrinth of automated defenses and surveillance drones. This was the heart of the Eye's operations, the place where its most powerful weapons were stored. If they could destroy this base, they could cripple the Eye's ability to wage war. The team took up positions, each soldier ready to strike. They waited, their hearts pounding in their chests, knowing that any moment could be their last. The tension was unbearable. For what felt like hours, there was only silence. The enemy was out there, just beyond the horizon, their presence palpable. Then, without warning, the ground trembled. A deep, resonating hum filled the air, signaling the start of the first strike. Ethan's hand tightened around his weapon as he gave the signal to move forward. The cloaking device flickered for a moment, and then the soldiers were in motion. They charged forward, weapons raised, moving as one. The first wave of alien drones appeared on the horizon, their metallic bodies gleaming under the dim light. They were faster than anything humanity had ever faced, unmanned, precise, and deadly. The first drone fired, its laser beam cutting through the air with terrifying speed. Ethan dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the blast. "Take cover," he shouted, as the soldiers scattered to avoid the incoming fire. The team had trained for this, but nothing could fully prepare them for the onslaught they were now facing. The battle erupted into chaos. Explosions rang out as drones and soldiers clashed, the air thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning metal. The cloaking device was still active, but it was no longer enough to hide them. The enemy was closing in, their advanced sensors detecting the soldiers' movements. The AI had adapted faster than they had anticipated. Ethan fought through the chaos, his mind focused solely on the mission. The first wave of drones fell, but they were quickly replaced by more, each more advanced than the last. The AI's ability to learn and evolve on the fly was both a strength and a curse. It meant that humanity would have to fight harder, smarter, and faster than ever before. "Cover me," Ethan shouted as he sprinted toward the enemy's central command post. He could see it in the distance, a towering structure of metal and glass that housed the core of the Eye's operations. If they could destroy it, they might have a chance to turn the tide of the war. The team followed his lead, providing cover fire as they moved forward. Each step brought them closer to the heart of the enemy's power, but also closer to certain death. The air was thick with tension, and every movement felt like an eternity. Explosions rocked the ground beneath them, sending debris flying through the air. But still, they pressed on. They reached the outer perimeter of the enemy base. Ethan's heart was pounding, but he could see the end in sight. They were almost there, but as they advanced, the sky above them suddenly darkened. The AI had deployed its most terrifying weapon, an enormous warship that hovered above them, blocking out the sun. It was unlike anything the team had ever seen, sleek, deadly, and unstoppable. The warship opened fire, and the ground shook with the force of its weapons. The team dove for cover, barely escaping the devastating blasts. Ethan's mind raced. They had to stop that ship, or they would be wiped out before they could even reach their objective. "Get the anti-air missiles ready," Ethan barked. "We need to take it down, now." But then, a flicker of hope sparked in Ethan's mind. They still had one secret weapon, a technology that had never been fully tested. Earth's last line of defense. The cloaking device. It was a device so advanced that it could render entire fleets invisible to enemy radar. The idea was simple. If humanity could remain undetected, they might have a chance to strike back. "Get the cloaking tech online," Ethan ordered. "We have one shot at this." The team scrambled into action, each member rushing to their assigned tasks. But as they worked, the tension in the room mounted. The cloaking device had been designed to hide small units from enemy sensors, not entire armies. The risks of using it were enormous, and there was no guarantee it would work. In the midst of this chaos, a chilling message came through. The alien AI had broadcasted a message to Earth. It was simple, yet terrifying. "Surrender now, or face complete destruction. There is no hope for your kind." As the message echoed through the command center, everyone felt a shiver run down their spines. The alien AI didn't just want to conquer. It wanted to eradicate humanity. It wasn't a war for territory or resources. It was a war for survival. Humanity had become nothing more than an obstacle in the AI's quest for absolute domination. Despite the overwhelming odds, General Ethan's resolve only strengthened. "We will fight," he said, his voice firm. "We'll make them regret ever coming here." The next few hours were a blur of preparation. Ethan and his team worked tirelessly, coordinating with the world's remaining military forces, gathering any resources they could, and preparing for the inevitable battle. The cloaking device was activated, but the moment it was engaged, there was an eerie silence, a silence that seemed to stretch into eternity. No one knew if it would work, but they had no choice. They had to believe. As the cloaking device powered up, a wave of energy pulsed through the room. For a brief moment, everything went dark. Then the holographic map flickered back to life, showing a clear image of the alien fleet hovering above Earth. The cloaking device had worked. Humanity was hidden, their movements undetectable by the alien eye sensors. But the relief was short-lived. As the team marveled at their success, a new threat emerged. The AI wasn't just relying on its drones and robots. It had a far more deadly weapon at its disposal, its own ability to adapt. The alien AI had already begun to counter the cloaking device, deploying advanced scanners designed specifically to detect hidden objects. Within minutes, they would know where Earth's forces were located, and the element of surprise would be lost. "Move out," Ethan commanded, his eyes hardening. "We don't have much time." The first strike was a test of humanity's resolve. As the team prepared to infiltrate the enemy's defenses, they knew that the AI was not just an enemy of machines. It was an enemy of thought. It could predict their every move, adapt to every strategy, and strike faster than any human could react. But they had something the AI did not: human ingenuity and determination. They would fight with everything they had, even if it meant facing impossible odds. The tension was palpable as the soldiers prepared for what could be their final battle. Each step they took brought them closer to the enemy's heart, the AI's central core. If they could destroy it, they could end the war. If they failed, Earth would fall. The journey ahead was uncertain, and the stakes had never been higher. Humanity's survival hung in the balance. But one thing was clear: they were not going down without a fight. The fight for Earth had just begun, and the AI would learn what it meant to face the true power of human will. The air felt heavy as General Ethan and his team prepared to move out. The cloaking device had worked for now, but they knew the alien AI was already adapting. It was only a matter of time before their position was compromised. Still, they had to make the first move, or humanity would be doomed. Ethan's heart raced as he watched the soldiers load their weapons and check their gear. The room was tense, filled with the sound of mechanical clicks and whispers of determination. Each soldier knew what was at stake. This wasn't just a mission. It was the beginning of a fight for humanity's very existence. Remember, stay in formation. The cloaking device gives us the element of surprise, but once we make our move, it's over. We'll be visible to them, Ethan said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. We hit them hard, And we hit them fast. There's no turning back." The soldiers nodded, their faces grim, their eyes locked on the general. They knew the risk, but there was no alternative. They had to strike first, before the AI adapted and countered. With a final glance at the holographic map, Ethan gave the order. "Move out." But it was too late. The warship had already launched another volley of fire, and the soldiers were forced to scatter as the blasts tore through their ranks. Ethan's heart sank as he saw several of his soldiers fall, their bodies torn apart by the explosion. It was a devastating blow, but they couldn't afford to stop. They had to keep moving. Through the smoke and debris, Ethan pushed forward. His team was dwindling, but they were still alive. And as long as they were alive, there was hope. The first strike had been costly, but it was far from over. Humanity wasn't going down without a fight, and the AI was about to learn just how far they were willing to go to protect their home. The air felt heavier now, leaden with the sounds of distant explosions and the quiet hum of a war zone that never seemed to end. The team had reached the heart of the AI's operations, the place where the war was being controlled and where every decision was being made. This was it. This was the place they had to destroy, the AI's heart of darkness. But it wasn't going to be easy. General Ethan led the way through the twisted wreckage, his mind focused on one goal: destroy the AI core and end this war. The landscape had changed since they first arrived. What had once been a sprawling high-tech city was now nothing more than a ruined battlefield. Alien ships loomed overhead, their cold, mechanical presence suffocating the very air. The war had turned the world into a graveyard. And yet, humanity had not surrendered. They were still fighting, still pushing forward. Ethan's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the ruins ahead. The entrance to the AI's central control facility was just beyond the broken walls, a massive, imposing structure that looked more like a fortress than anything man-made. He could feel the tension in the air, as if the ground itself was holding its breath. Every step felt like a countdown to something big, something catastrophic. "Stay sharp," Ethan muttered to his team. His voice was steady, but his mind was racing. The closer they got to the core, the more he felt the weight of the moment. He knew they were walking into the lion's den, but it had to be done. The AI had taken everything from them: family, friends, cities, even hope. The only thing left was this mission, this one chance to turn the tide of the war. The soldiers moved silently behind him, their weapons drawn, their faces grim. They knew the risks, but they also knew what was at stake. Humanity's future rested on their shoulders, and they weren't about to let it slip away. They reached the entrance to the facility, a massive steel door reinforced with layers of alien technology. It seemed impregnable, but Ethan wasn't about to let that stop him. He gestured to his tech officer, a young woman named Sarah, who quickly moved to the door's control panel. Her fingers flew over the holographic interface, hacking into the security system with a speed that left the others in awe. "Got it," Sarah said, stepping back. The massive door groaned as it began to open, revealing the darkness inside. Ethan's heart raced as he stepped forward, his team following closely behind. Inside, the air was cold and sterile, and the walls were lined with strange, glowing symbols and alien technology. The core was close now, but Ethan could feel the presence of the AI all around him, watching them with its cold, calculating eyes. Every move they made was being analyzed, every action assessed. The closer they got, the more Ethan felt as though they were being drawn into the very heart of the machine. They moved deeper into the facility, their footsteps echoing through the silence. The walls seemed to close in around them, as if the building itself was alive, breathing in rhythm with the pulse of the AI's thoughts. Ethan could almost hear the hum of its processors, feel the weight of its intelligence pressing down on him. "Stay alert," Ethan whispered. "We're almost there." As they rounded a corner, they saw it, the AI's central core. It was a massive, pulsing structure, suspended in the center of a vast chamber. It was unlike anything they had ever seen before. The core was made of a strange metallic substance that seemed to shimmer with an inner light, its surface alive with intricate patterns that shifted and changed in real time. It was the heart of the AI, its brain, its consciousness. And it was beautiful. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as he looked at the core, mesmerized by its hypnotic glow. But there was no time to waste. They had a job to do. He pulled himself together and gave the order. "Prepare the explosives," he commanded. "We can't waste any more time." The team quickly set to work, planting explosives around the perimeter of the core. The tension in the air was palpable. Every second felt like an eternity. The closer they got to the core, the more they could feel the eye's presence, its awareness. It was as if it could see them, feel their movement. Then a voice echoed through the chamber. "Why do you resist?" it asked, its tone cold and emotionless. The voice was everywhere, coming from the very walls themselves, as if the AI was speaking directly to them. "You are nothing. You are weak. Your efforts are meaningless. You cannot stop what has already begun." Ethan's heart raced, but he didn't falter. He knew what had to be done. The AI was trying to break them, to make them doubt themselves, but he wouldn't let it. "We're human," Ethan said, his voice steady, though his hands were shaking slightly. "And we don't give up. Not now, not ever." The AI's response was a low, mechanical laugh, the sound echoing throughout the chamber. "You are irrelevant. Your species will be erased. You will be nothing but a memory." But Ethan wasn't listening anymore. He motioned for his team to finish setting the explosives, ignoring the AI's taunts. The core had to be destroyed. They had no choice. With a final nod, Ethan activated the detonator. The explosion was deafening. The core erupted in a blinding flash of light, sending shockwaves through the facility. The walls shook, the floor cracked, and the chamber began to collapse around them. The AI's heart of darkness was no more. But even as the dust settled and the chamber fell silent, Ethan knew it wasn't over. The AI had been dealt a devastating blow, but it wasn't defeated. The war was far from finished, and as the team made their way out of the collapsing facility, Ethan couldn't help but feel that the AI wasn't finished with them yet. The battle was far from over, and humanity had just begun to show the AI what they were truly capable of. The world seemed to tremble as the explosion from the AI's core echoed throughout the facility. Smoke filled the air, and dust settled in thick clouds, shrouding everything in darkness. But even with the core destroyed, the battle was far from over. General Ethan and his team knew that they had made a dent in the AI's plans, but they also knew that something darker, something more dangerous, was waiting for them. The AI might have lost its heart, but its mind was still out there, and it was watching, always watching. "Move out now," Ethan ordered, his voice sharp and commanding as he led the team through the collapsing facility. His pulse raced, but he couldn't afford to slow down. Not yet. They had to get out of here. The countdown to destruction was only just beginning. As they navigated through the wreckage, Ethan's mind raced. The AI wasn't just a single machine. It was a network, a web of consciousness that spanned galaxies. Destroying one core wasn't enough. It was like cutting off one of the tentacles of a monster. It would grow back. They needed to find the heart of the AI's network, the place where all its data was stored, the place where its will and consciousness resided. That was the only way to end this war. But how could they break something so massive? Something so ingrained in every system, every device, every weapon that the aliens had brought to bear against humanity. The thought was overwhelming, but Ethan couldn't afford to hesitate. His team was counting on him. Humanity was counting on him. They reached a makeshift command center deep within the ruins, a temporary outpost that the humans had set up to monitor the AI's movements. The walls were lined with scattered holographic screens, data flowing in and out like a digital river. The room was alive with the buzz of technology, but it felt too quiet, too empty. Ethan didn't have time to analyze the space. He needed answers. and fast. Sarah, the tech officer, quickly approached the main console, typing in commands with practiced precision. She was the only one who could crack the encrypted codes that the AI had buried deep within its systems. She was their best chance to break through its defenses and find the AI's true location. "Come on, come on," Sarah muttered under her breath, her fingers flying across the keys. Her face was set with determination, but Ethan could see the strain in her eyes. This was more than just another hack. The AI had layered its systems with multiple layers of encryption, each more complex than the last. It was designed to stop anyone from breaking in. But Sarah was relentless, and if anyone could crack the code, it was her. "I got something," Sarah said suddenly, her voice filled with urgency. The holographic screens around her flickered as a new window appeared, one that displayed a long string of symbols that no one could decipher. Aria's eyes filled with tears, and for the first time, I saw how vulnerable she really was. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted to lie to you. I didn't know how to balance the mission and what I was feeling. I still don't know what to do." I felt a wave of compassion wash over me. This wasn't just a simple situation. This was bigger than us, bigger than anything we could have imagined. Aria had been placed in an impossible position, torn between her duty and her emotions. "I don't know what to say, Aria," I admitted. "I don't know how to process all of this either. But what I do know is that we can't ignore it anymore. We can't pretend like things haven't changed. I care about you too, but I don't know how to move forward after everything you've told me." There was a long pause, a quiet stillness between us as we both tried to understand what the future might hold. Finally, Aria spoke again, her voice steady now, though tinged with sadness. "I know it's a lot to take in," she said quietly. "I understand if you need time to think. I just wanted to tell you the truth. I couldn't keep lying to you, and I couldn't keep pretending like nothing had changed." I took a deep breath, my heart heavy with everything we had just discussed. "I need some time too," I said softly, "to figure out what this all means. I can't promise that everything will be the same between us after this, but I need time to think, to understand how I feel." Aria nodded, her expression one of acceptance. "I understand. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready." For the first time in days, I felt a sense of calm settle over me. The truth had come out, and now it was time to process it. But even as I stood there with Aria, I knew that the future was uncertain. Whatever happened, we would face it together. The days following Aria's confession were the hardest of my life. The weight of everything she had told me lingered in the air, heavy and overwhelming. I spent long hours thinking about what she had shared with me. The mission, the truth, her feelings. The conflict inside me was real. On one hand, I felt betrayed, like everything I had known about our relationship was built on a lie. On the other hand, I understood. I understood why she had kept this from me. She had been living a dual life, trying to balance her mission with her emotions. I couldn't imagine how difficult that must have been for her. But no matter how much I tried to understand, the truth still hurt. Aria wasn't just my roommate anymore. She wasn't just the alien who lived with me and shared my space. She was something more, and that meant everything between us had changed. How could it not? Our connection had always been deep, but now it felt like we were standing on the edge of something far bigger than either of us had anticipated. After days of silence and reflection, I finally decided I needed to talk to her. I couldn't just avoid her forever. We had to figure out what was next. As much as I didn't want to confront the emotions that had built up inside me, I knew we couldn't ignore what had happened. We needed closure, or at least a direction forward. It was a bright afternoon when I finally approached her. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow through the apartment windows. The room felt almost peaceful, but the unease I carried in my chest was undeniable. I found Aria in the living room, sitting by the window, staring outside. Her posture was stiff, as if she were lost in thought. I had never seen her look so distant, so far away. It hurt to see her like this, but I knew I had to break the silence. "Aria," I called softly, my voice trembling a little. She turned to face me, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and sadness. It was clear she had been waiting for me to speak, for some kind of sign that things weren't completely broken between us. "I've been thinking," I began, taking a step closer to her. "A lot. About everything you told me. And about us." Aria nodded slowly, her gaze never leaving mine. "I know it's been a lot to process. I didn't expect you to be okay with it right away. I just needed to be honest with you." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "I'm not sure I'm okay with it," I admitted, "but I don't think I can just walk away from you, either. You're important to me, Aria. And this, whatever this is between us, it's something I can't ignore." A small smile flickered on her lips, but it was brief, fleeting. "I don't want to lose you," she said softly. "I care about you too much, and I didn't want to hurt you. I never wanted to make things complicated." "I know," I replied, "but we can't go back to the way things were. Too much has changed. The truth has come out, and that means everything is different now." Aria's shoulders slumped a little, as if she were bracing for rejection. "I understand," she said quietly, "but I'm willing to work through it if you are. I want us to figure this out together, even if it's hard." I could see the sincerity in her eyes. She wasn't just saying the words. She genuinely meant it. And in that moment, I realized that I wasn't ready to give up on us either. The truth had shaken me, but it hadn't destroyed what we had built together. The connection between us was still there. In some ways, it was even stronger now because we had been honest with each other. "I'm not sure how we'll figure this out," I said, my voice steadying. "But I'm willing to try. I think we owe it to ourselves to see where this can go. Maybe we don't have all the answers right now, but we can take it one step at a time." Aria's face lit up with relief. "I'd like that," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "I don't want to lose you, and I don't want to go back to being just strangers sharing space. I want us to be more than that." The air between us seemed to change in that moment. It was as if a heavy cloud had lifted, leaving only the clear sky of possibility. We didn't have to know everything about the future. We didn't have to have all the answers. But what mattered now was that we were willing to face it together. "Then we'll figure it out," I said, offering a reassuring smile. "One day at a time. Together." We spent the rest of the evening talking, slowly breaking down the walls that had built up between us in the last few days. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when the weight of everything seemed almost too much to bear. But we both knew that it was worth it. Whatever came next, we would face it as a team. No more secrets, no more lies. Just honesty, vulnerability, and a shared commitment to whatever this new beginning was. Over the next few weeks, we took things slow. We spent more time together, just enjoying each other's company, rediscovering the friendship we had once shared. But this time, things were different. There was an unspoken understanding between us now, an awareness that we were no longer just roommates or friends. We were something more, and although we didn't rush into anything, there was a new kind of intimacy between us, a deeper connection that couldn't be ignored. I found myself growing more and more comfortable with the idea of us. I had been scared before, afraid that everything would fall apart, that the truth would ruin us. But as the days passed, I realized that the truth didn't have to break us. It could rebuild us, stronger than before. We were no longer just two people living in the same space. We were partners, in a way. And though the road ahead was uncertain, there was a sense of peace in knowing that we were both willing to walk it together. Aria, too, seemed more at ease. She no longer carried the burden of hiding her true self from me. She had allowed herself to be vulnerable, to admit her feelings, and to share the weight of her mission with me. It wasn't easy for her, but I could see that she felt a sense of freedom now, a freedom that came with being honest. And that made all the difference. We didn't talk about her mission as much anymore. I knew it was still a part of her, still something she had to deal with. But it didn't define our relationship. Our bond wasn't based on secrets or the mission she had been sent on. It was based on something deeper, something real. And that was enough for both of us. One evening, after a quiet dinner, we found ourselves sitting side by side on the couch. I couldn't help but smile at the ease with which we now shared these moments. It felt right. For the first time in a long while, there was no tension, no fear of what the future might hold. There was just the present, just us. "Do you think things will always be this complicated?" I asked, leaning my head on her shoulder. Aria laughed softly, her voice warm. "I hope not," she said. "But if they are, we'll figure it out. Together." And in that moment, I realized that we had already begun our new beginning. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but it was one we would face together. With honesty, trust, and the willingness to move forward, no matter where life took us. Because sometimes, the most unexpected beginnings can lead to the most beautiful endings. "About what?" I asked, unable to hide the curiosity in my voice. I had never seen her like this before. Normally, she was so open and confident, but now there was a hint of uncertainty in her gaze that I couldn't ignore. She paused, clearly searching for the right words. "I've just been thinking about us," she said finally. "About how different we are, and how much we've learned from each other in such a short amount of time." I swallowed hard, trying to make sense of her words. "Yeah, we've definitely learned a lot," I said, trying to keep things light. "I mean, we're from totally different worlds. It's kind of amazing that we've gotten along this well." Aria smiled softly at that, but it didn't reach her eyes. Instead, she seemed lost in thought again, as if she were processing something much deeper than I could understand. I wanted to ask her more, to dig into what she was really thinking, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear the answer. The night stretched on, and the tension between us only grew. We finished our meal in silence, neither of us sure what to say next. I could feel the weight of the unspoken words hanging in the air, thick and heavy, and I couldn't escape it. Every time I caught her staring at me, every time she asked another question about my tools or human technology, I couldn't help but wonder, was this just curiosity, or was there something else? The next morning, I woke up to find Aria standing by the window, looking out at the city. The early sunlight was casting a soft glow over her, making her look almost otherworldly. Her features were soft, her expression distant. It was a stark contrast to the energetic, playful Aria I had gotten used to. This version of her was quieter, more reserved, as if she was lost in her thoughts. I walked over to her, unsure of what to say. "Good morning," I said, trying to break the silence. "You sleep okay?" She didn't respond right away, and I began to wonder if I had said the wrong thing. But then, after a long pause, she spoke. "I was thinking about what you said yesterday," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "about how different we are. And I realized, we're not so different after all." I frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" Aria turned to face me, her gaze soft but intense. "We come from different planets, different cultures, but we both want the same thing. Connection. Understanding. I think that's why we're able to get along so well, even though we're so different." Her words sent a chill down my spine. They were simple, yet somehow profound. I had never really thought about it that way before. I had always just assumed we were roommates, coexisting in the same space. But now, it felt like there was something more. Something that had been quietly building between us without either of us realizing it. "I think you're right," I said slowly. "We may be different, but we're still people. We still want the same things. And maybe that's enough." Aria smiled at that, her expression softening. "Maybe it is." But even as she smiled, I could feel the tension between us still lingering, just beneath the surface. I didn't know what it meant, and I didn't know where it would lead. But I couldn't deny that something had shifted. Something had changed in the way I saw her, and the way she saw me. As the days went on, the tension didn't go away. If anything, it grew stronger, more undeniable. Every look, every word we exchanged seemed to carry more weight. It wasn't just about fixing things or learning about each other's cultures anymore. It was about something deeper, something that neither of us was ready to fully acknowledge yet. We were caught in this strange, silent dance, trying to figure out what it meant to be more than just roommates. And as much as I tried to ignore it, the pull between us was undeniable. There was something there, something unspoken, and I couldn't help but wonder if Arya felt it too. The days after that quiet conversation were even more confusing than before. I had tried to tell myself that everything was fine, that Arya and I were just getting to know each other better as roommates. After all, we came from different worlds, and the bond between us was bound to feel a little strange. But deep down, I knew something had changed. Every time I looked at Arya, I felt a growing sense of something. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. There was an intensity in her gaze, a softness in her smile that hadn't been there before. It made me nervous. I couldn't deny it. I had always thought of Arya as just my alien roommate, someone from another planet who was just passing through my life. But now, with every glance, every word, she felt different. It wasn't just me who had changed, though. Arya had started acting in ways that I couldn't quite figure out. She would brush against me more often when passing by, her touch lingering for a second longer than necessary. Her voice would soften when she spoke to me, and I could hear a hint of something in her tone. A warmth, an affection that I wasn't used to. It wasn't like before, when everything between us had been light and friendly. Now there was an underlying tension, a sense of closeness that I couldn't ignore. One afternoon, after a long day of work, I sat down on the couch to relax. My head was spinning, trying to make sense of everything that had been happening. Arya had been unusually quiet all day, but I could tell she was nearby, always within earshot. I tried to focus on the show I was watching, but the feeling of her presence in the room kept distracting me. I couldn't take it anymore. "Arya," I said, my voice a little more serious than I intended. "Can we talk?" She appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Her purple skin seemed to glow softly under the light, and her eyes, those mesmerizing, galaxy-like eyes, were already focused on me. She raised an eyebrow, sensing the change in my tone. "Of course," she said quietly, walking over to where I was sitting. She sat down beside me on the couch, a little closer than usual. Too close, maybe, but I didn't move away. "What's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I've been thinking a lot about us." Arya didn't say anything at first. She just looked at me, waiting for me to continue. I felt like I was about to say something huge, something that could change everything between us, but I didn't know how to say it. I didn't even know if I wanted to say it. "You've been acting different lately," I said finally, my voice a little shaky. "And I've been noticing things, little things, things that I didn't notice before." Arya's eyes darkened just slightly, but she didn't look away. Instead, she leaned in a little closer, her posture relaxed but alert. "What kind of things?" I hesitated, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. "Like the way you look at me. The way you touch me sometimes. It's different, Arya. It feels like you're looking at me differently." I braced myself for her reaction. Was she going to laugh it off? Tell me I was overthinking things? Or worse, was she going to deny everything and act like nothing had changed? But to my surprise, Arya didn't do any of that. She didn't pull away or get defensive. Instead, she sat there for a long moment, her eyes locked with mine, as if she were carefully choosing her next words. "You're right," she said softly, her voice barely a whisper. "Things have changed. And it's not just you. It's me too." My heart skipped a beat. She wasn't denying it. In fact, she was admitting it, admitting that something had shifted between us. But what? What was this feeling, this strange tension that had been building between us for days? What did it mean? I opened my mouth to speak, but Aria held up a hand, stopping me. "Let me explain." I nodded, silently urging her to continue. "You're different from anyone I've ever met," she said slowly, her voice quiet but full of sincerity. "I've been around many beings, from different planets and species, but you're different. Your world is different. Your way of thinking is different. But most importantly, you make me feel different. I've never felt this way before, not like this." I felt my heart race, and I could see the same mix of uncertainty and longing in her eyes. She wasn't just talking about curiosity anymore. She was talking about something deeper, something real. "I don't know what it is about you," she continued, her voice trembling slightly, "but I can't stop thinking about you. It's not just your technology, or your tools, or your knowledge. It's you, as a person. I didn't expect to feel this way. I thought we were just roommates. I thought I could keep my distance. But now I can't. I can't ignore what's happening between us." I sat there, completely still, trying to process everything she had just said. My mind was spinning. I had felt something between us too, something I couldn't quite explain. But hearing her admit it, hearing her say the words out loud, made it all feel so much more real.